Pulled up beside him, blaring beside Merle. He said, "There's still some good in this world." He said that Hag was a poet for the common man. Got him through his tour in Vietnam.
Hello and welcome to Telling It Like It Is, UGA Extension and Southeast District's newest source for local, unbiased, research-based information about Georgia's number one industry, agriculture. My name is Blake Carter, and with me for the first time this season, together, Savannah Tanner.
Hi guys.
The Emmanuel County Ag Natural Resources Agent, and we're really excited to bring you this episode. We've got a really good main talk coming from Dr. Wes Porter here in a few minutes. But before we do, we're going to finish up our month-long initiative to talk about Ag Month, National Ag Month. Ag Week just happened last week or 2 weeks ago, and one of the big things from Ag Week, one of the days is Ag Hero Day. And we're going to finish up that part of our series by talking about our one more Ag Hero piece. Savannah's going to give a cop-out answer, but I'm going to give a good answer here as another one of my Ag Heroes, and that's Dr. Andrew Sewell. He was actually born on July 8th in 1870, so it was a hot minute, but he was very instrumental in UGA's College of Ag becoming what it is today. Despite petitions urging him to remain in Virginia, he actually became the president of Georgia State College of Ag. So UGA and the College of Ag actually were two separate entities back then. And he had significantly advanced agriculture education. One of his biggest initiatives or programs he established was kind of a precursor to what we know today as the Cooperative Extension Service. This was called the College on Wheels, and it was launched in 1908, to bring agricultural knowledge directly to farmers. So they actually loaded up different specialists, or what we would consider specialists now, or professors back then, and they had livestock in some cars, and they had crops in examples in some cars of the train, and literally it was each one of the cars had a different lesson or different presentation to go with it, and they sent out a list of when the dates the train would be coming through different areas and different counties, and they visited I believe all counties after the second. They did this twice, and they ended up going across the whole state and providing research-based information from the university level to the rural Georgians. And at that point, it was a lot harder to get to Athens than it is today and go to UGA because of just how far it was and the issues with transportation and everything. But he's also known as somebody that was instrumental in in bringing women on campus at UGA. UGA actually, when we merged together, the date that they actually used to talk about the first women on campus, it was actually because of the College of Ag at the time. They brought in a lot of they were very big on that. He was actually instrumental in getting the Family and Consumer Sciences College up and running. It was kind of a precursor to that. It was an all women's dorm kind of type situation at that point in time, but he was very instrumental in that. And I think that is extremely important because he saw not just the value of agriculture in educating the masses of the state, but he also saw the need for other programming targeting other audiences other than, at this point in time, typically it was males, right? It was the males of the household. That was a lot of where the information was going to, but he saw the foresight to say, hey, we need to also look at what these families need. And it's not just one person from the family, it's the whole family. And originally it was targeted more towards the women for the fact side, but that's obviously since changed. But UGA's reorganization happened in 1933, and so he was actually reorganized and reshifted. So he went from president to being a dean. So he was actually one of our deans for the College of Ag on campus. He continued in his public service role until his death in 1934. And one of my little fun facts about Andrew Sewell is he was remembered as King Andy because of his leadership style. He was very persuasive, and he had this natural influence or national influence about him that included roles during World War I and getting a U.S. delegate in Brazil in 1922. So he had a lot of pull, and he also had a lot of just a presence about him. And I think that's just kind of cool to have a cool nickname like King Andy. But Savannah, I know you have your answer for your ag hero of this episode. So who is it? Go ahead.
So it's definitely not a cop out answer. If you had to watch what I watched through Hurricane Helene,
Oh, now you're gonna make
I
me.
turned it off.
What do you mean you turned it off?
No, I didn't.
No, you didn't. What are you talking?
All
Look,
right.
technical difficulties, folks. She had, like I said, this is the new time she's experienced these new mics that we have. So sorry about that. Go ahead. It's not a cop out, but she's about to make me look like I'm a terrible person. Continue.
No, but when you see when you watch your farmers through something like Hurricane Helene, I mean I certainly have my personal ag heroes that that I grew up with that have really impacted my life, but watching all of my farmers through that, you find that your farmers are some of the most hardworking, resilient, faithful people that you'll ever meet. And they have a compassion that so many people lack these days. So, we had farmers with cows in the highway. We had farmers that had lost just massive amounts of their crop, pecan trees, cotton, and they're gonna meet us, but they had to drive a skid steer to the next town so they could unload pallets of water. Or they still have cows out, and they're going and running these distribution centers and making sure that roads are clean and making sure their neighbors have the necessities that they need, and they're doing that before they're even checking on themselves. And so you find with the farming community, and I don't just mean the farmers, I mean the farmers' wives, their families. You just find this compassion, this hard work, these passionate people that want the best for their neighbors, but also are wanting to feed the world. And if that's not what a hero is, I really don't know what one is. So maybe not in a traditional sense. Maybe they're not my personal ones, but at the same time, like, we're feeding the world. We're not just feeding, our families. We're feeding the entire world, and to increase food production by 70% in 2050, it's going to take a hero. And I think that our farmers are the ones that are up for that challenge.
And I think people oftentimes have stereotypes in their heads about farming or farmers or big farms or corporate farms or, whatever the buzzwords are in the news media. And at the end of the day, a lot of these folks are really down to earth.
Well, we use those words, corporate farms, things like that, but still over 90% of your farms are family
100%.
owned.
That's why I mean, it's very much family, and it's all connected. The farming community is a family itself as well.
Well, and I talked a little bit about resiliency, and certainly we mean that in the regard of bouncing back from low prices, from hurricanes and things like that. But it takes a very resilient person to bounce back and want to farm for ungrateful people. And I hate to be the brat that says it quite like that, but the world is against the farmer in a lot of situations, and it takes that resiliency for these guys to move on day in and day out. When people think you're trying to poison them or kill them, and these guys are just trying to make an honest living and feed the world.
That's 100% right, and I know you just went telling it like it is after dark with some of that, but I think the big thing we got to remember, farming is probably one of the most stressful jobs that people choose to go into, and it's something that a lot of people don't realize is they're doing a job that they have no control. They can do all their stuff right, and Mother Nature can literally just disrupt everything. And it doesn't matter how good of a farmer you can be. There's so much more stress and factors that are involved in this profession that people, I don't think, take the time to realize that what goes into bringing those the eggs at the grocery store, or the vegetables in the produce section, or the cotton in the shirt on your back. I think there's just a lot of misconceptions about what goes into it, and it's oftentimes forgotten. And I think that's where that hero piece comes in, because it's a hero to me is somebody that doesn't seek recognition for what they're doing.
Right.
They're doing it because they care about it. because they are passionate about it. And there's not, if you're not passionate as a farmer, you're not a farmer. I don't think I've met a single farmer that's ever been not passionate about what they're doing. And that's what makes a true hero.
Well, and it's rare that you find a farmer that would rather be doing something else.
That's exactly right.
And you know, they again are resilient. They're fighting through the struggles that they deal with day in, day out. But they don't, when you talk to them, they don't see another way of life.
No, they do not.
I think that is just qualities of a hero. And
Yep.
so yeah, you said I might have a cop out answer, but at the same time, like, you know, why can't our farming population be a hero to feed the world? And the answer is they are.
They are. That's 100% right. Because at the end of the day, what this month and this week that we've had in March, it's just it's not even scratching the surface of the recognition and spotlight that the farming community kind of deserves. I mean, that's one aspect of our everyday lives that is, everyone has to experience some sort of agriculture touching their lives in some form or fashion, or something that a farmer has produced in every single day that they live. There is an aspect of your life that comes from something that a farmer has either grown or produced, and that's something that we sometimes take for granted.
And it's all farmers. That's, you know, we have these terms, we have these people. We're not going to use seed oils. We're not going to use animal products, things like that. But fun fact, your cell phone is the computer board in it is from a product coming from cows. And so, like, it, you know, certainly we can say that we're going to minimize the amount of agriculture in our life, and it's physically impossible to do that.
That's exactly right. So as we wrap up March and we're moving into April, and we're setting our sights on, you know, the springtime, and springtime is so associated with planting and growing a good crop and new life. This is the time of year where we can reflect a lot on farming. You know, the fall and the spring are so intertwined with farming and agriculture, just in our minds and in everyday people's lives and minds. So it's a good time to extend this reflection past March. It's not just 1 month that we should be thinking about this, and taking time to, if you see a farmer pass by or you know somebody, take time to say thank you for what they do, and ask them, you know, what can you do to help them? Because I think that's a lot of times we overlook that. And we don't take the time to ask those kind of questions or even say those comments. So Savannah, do you have any last few things from the ag month side?
Well, I mean, it's planting time. It's
That's
time to
right.
get ready, and to get ready, we're gonna transition into talking to one of our state specialists real quick, guys. So we have Dr. Wes Porter here with us today. We're actually recording from a precision ag and irrigation agent training here in Midville, but we're going to have Wes talk a little bit about what we should be planning for going into planting season. So planter setup, maybe a little bit on sprayer calibration, but making sure that our equipment is aligned and ready to get through the planting season this year.
Yep. Yeah, that's perfect, Savannah. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks, Blake and Savannah, for hosting me here today. It's time, right? It was chilly this morning. It's been a little dry. Looked to be dry over the next few weeks. So depending on what soil moisture conditions are looking like, what crop you're going to plant, what your soil temperatures are looking like, it's time to start moving equipment. And I'm sure some of you have already done that and planted some corn. But we've still got time to make sure all our equipment's up to par and ready to go. And Savannah alluded to it. We've got about 4 or 5 pieces of equipment, maybe a little bit more, sitting around that has not moved since, depending, last June, last May, maybe September, maybe even August, depending on what piece of equipment you're talking about. And that we could go in whatever order, but let's say planter first, maybe, just we're putting the seed in the ground. We may have sprayed some pre-emerge stuff prior with a sprayer, but we'll go planter first. It's, we park that system. We park it usually planting cotton, unless you did some double crop something. And some of you guys are in East Georgia, I know you push some of that, maybe some later soybeans, maybe some shorter season corn, but we planted something like that later. Again, I said maybe May to June, maybe you plant a little later, but it hadn't moved since then. You haven't planted anything over the winter. So hopefully you had emptied all your hoppers out, pulled your seed plates out, and done all that stuff. Today we've spent pretty extensive time going through general parts on the planter and what you need to consider as you pull that out. And we've got a little 12-step guide or 13-step guide out there you can find on our fact sheet. It's a planter checklist. If you just search UGA planter checklist, you'll find it. And I lied, it's 14 steps. I looked over and seen one laying here. I'm not going to go through every bit of it on the podcast because we'd be here all day, right? But if you pull that down and call your agent, they are all experts on how to go through it. But you definitely just want to look at your wearable parts. You want to look at your opening disc, any of the rubber parts on the planter, check your vacuums, check your seed tubes for obstructions. That's going to happen. And I hate to say this, but inevitably some of you guys got done planting and the planter got pulled under the shed and the seed never even got dumped out. And guess who likes seed over the winter? That's mice. And so mice will get in there and chew that seed. It'll fall through, stop that seed tube up. You won't check it, and you'll get out there and you'll have a stopped up seed tube, and you won't have planted the first 300 or 400 yards, or hopefully not. You'll catch it before you get into acres. And it's not a single row, but we won't catch that very quickly if we don't have seed monitoring or we hadn't checked those tubes. So that's something definitely to look at. Again, all the wear parts on those systems. And then make sure, here's the other thing, I said it's dry. You've got your soil temperature checked, you know your moisture's at. Ensure that you're matching your crop depth to where it needs to be. You're changing depth from crop to crop, changing seed plate from crop to crop. Again, a lot of other things on there with it. And I don't want to get too bogged down in it, but a planter is one of our most important pieces of equipment. And I have a really hard time as I work through that planter saying this part's important. Well, this part's also important. This part's important. It's a machine that's working together. And if one part fails, that system is only as strong as its weakest link. Yep. And hey, y'all can throw some darts at me. I like saying stupid stuff on podcasts. But this morning we did a training in Tifton or Southwest area, not just Tifton. We was in Tifton, but Southwest area on Tuesday. I did a planter clinic last night in Appling County. And then I got an email this morning when I got up, stayed in between Vidalia and Lyons last night, an email from an agent in Florida who said, hey, look, David Hula and Randy Dowdy are talking about planter setup and the importance of it. I said, well, at least I'm timely. For once, I'm the cool kid, right? I'm with the high yield guys. So, if those guys, we can say whatever we want, but if those guys are talking about it, we know that's an important, timely issue right now, right?
Yeah, and I think one thing to mention, you talked about, the wear and tear and checking on that. It would be a cheaper up front to go ahead and find out and fix those problems than having something worse and happen out in the field. I mean, so sometimes biting the bullet and taking the time to replace it and pay a little money, because what you explained out there for a lot of those parts, those little tiny things that wear so fast, it's more of it's on the cheaper end from an expense standpoint.
Go talk about seed costs now.
Yeah, exactly.
And screwing up seed costs. That's where we're at, having to replant, right? Yeah. And that's, we're going into a year, and I think that's I didn't make the statement to the agents now, but when I did my county meetings this year, we're going into a year that there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of high input crop prices. There's extremely low crop prices. And it's like, we had better be on target. I don't care what you're talking about. And if we go out there and we plant acres upon acres of seed with a bad seal on my vacuum, we're just dumping seed out, or we're losing seed and we have a bunch of misses, or we go out there and we've got a part that's broken, we didn't realize we got a bad hole in our vacuum line, or whatever. The list can go on and on. Like you said, Blake, one of our cheap parts, those seals are dollars.
Yep.
Plates are not dollars. They're a little more expensive. We got a warp plate in there, right? Or if we got a setting that we didn't even take time to look at, and now we got a row that never even came up or never got planted or stopped up, et cetera. And now we're sitting there making a huge investment that, we shouldn't have ever missed. So my thing this year when we look at it, and it's going to be hopefully it'll stay my common theme, we have to look at what we have out there, and we got to make the most of what we have, right? We've got equipment sitting out there, and we can make sure it's running and up to par. This is not the year to negate maintenance and to negate making sure it's operating at peak performance.
And make sure like you were mentioning earlier, it's different for every crop. So just make sure you're keeping up and keeping track of that, and keeping track of how many acres too. You mentioned about, it's going to be different for a 10,000 acre grower than a 2,000 acre grower in terms of how often they're needing to really put this as a priority.
100%. And the other thing, and there's no disrespect meant here, I've already talked to a couple people this year, and I've heard comments this year both. So it's not come from like one place, one source about the wrong seed plate being in,
Yep.
or the wrong part being in. And we're like, oh, well, that's so simple. Like, how would you forget that? We get in the middle of going, and it's like, all right, we just finished up corn. It's time to go to this. We dump our hoppers out, and next thing you know, somebody's done poured a bag of peanut seed in the hopper. We didn't think, did you put the plates in? Yeah, I put the plates in. Let's go. We can't figure out what's going on. And that's happened a lot, and more than it should. And we talked about internal parts on those planters that we need to change from crop to crop to crop. So, again, take your time, focus, do it right on that system. Let's get a successful stand in the field.
Now, we talked about planter. The other part of the training I think is useful to really touch on the sprayer side.
Yeah.
I think that's something huge. Will you touch on some of the things that we can do or growers can do to kind of just double check to make sure their sprayers are working properly?
Yes, that's another one, man. And this is the one going. Like I said, we parked our planters in probably June. Now we parked our sprayers. I would say probably the last thing I would have done was defoliated cotton. Maybe there's something rogue out there that came up, but I probably defoliated my cotton. I went and parked that system, right?
Yep.
And here's what scares me, and I'm going to come back to this again in a few minutes. Again, we're busy. Cotton's defoliated. Guess what? When I'm done defoliating, I'm already picking somewhere else. I'm big enough that I'm done picking somewhere else. So I'm like, man, I got to get the picker, got to start moving modules, got to start doing this, doing that. If I didn't clean out that sprayer and I didn't drain it good, what did we have this winter that I'm not going to say extremely unusual, but we had a cold winter.
Yep.
Right. And we can say, yeah, we had snow, but snow didn't bring any more cold. We just had cold with it. It was literally the perfect storm. But we had, if I can remember right, 3 or 4 or 5, and you guys in East Georgia get a little colder than us down in the Southwest. But we had 3 or 4 or 5 times that we were in the 20s down in the Southwest. Well, what happens if that sprayer's sitting right there and you had not drained it? And even if you said, well, I flushed it out, filters have the peacock valves in the bottom of it. I bet the filter housing could be cracked. The pump on the sprayer somewhere could be cracked. I learned a hard lesson when I was in grad school. I pulled a fertilizer applicator from a research station at Clemson, was working on it, running water through it to do tests, and then didn't think anything about it. Took it back to the research station that year and got ready to start running it, and the cast pump housing on it had cracked in half. I got my butt chewed on that one. I won't ever forget that one, because I accidentally left water sitting in it, and I didn't think about it. It's like it's not nitrogen.
Right.
I'd flushed it out, left water sitting in it between the times that I was working on it, and to me, it wasn't lazy. It was legit neglect. I just had a bunch of things going on. I said, that'll be fine. It's sitting out back the shop. It's good, and it was not. So, guys, if you didn't drain them, you need to do a couple things. Hopefully you took your tips off, cleaned them, and washed them. But if you didn't flush them first, you got a mess in your filters. I can tell you that right now. Drop all your filters off, check them, flush them, go through and put everything back together, put water in it, prime the pump, check for any leaks, check all your nozzles, and then I would go through a calibration procedure. And then depending on what you're spraying last and what nozzles you're moving to this year, check some uniformity across nozzles. Look for that, etc. So, again, I think the first biggest issue is make sure we got no leaks where we frozen and busted anything. Second, check calibration, check uniformity across the boom on that system. So,
And Wes, a lot of my guys just assume that with our calibration that it's just going to take this big, long, drawn-out process. But now, with technology changing, I mean, we can pretty much know exactly what's coming out in a, let's just say 20 foot boom in less than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so a lot of your agents have these spot on calibrators that just makes it super easy. Just call them out there. They'll be done. They can tell you something's wrong right then. And we can kind of find that problem. One other thing that we didn't hit on, but that we do see sometimes, and we talked about spraying, but what about insecticide boxes? What do we
Yes.
need to be doing for checking those and making sure those are putting out right?
yeah,
too?
so that's been a hot topic right now, too. We got to check those boxes on the back and calibrate them. And so there's a couple of different procedures on how to do that. I've gotten a bunch of calls on that. One of the most popular, I would call it, and you can't see me, quote unquote, popular procedures is you get the 12-volt motor. A lot of you guys remember doing that in the past. You hook it up to the side of your planter, disengage the drive wheel, and there's a chart that goes with that motor depending on which product you're putting out. We got 2 options of products there, which product we're putting out, and how fast we run the motor, how long we need to catch for to simulate for this particular width, what distance we covered in the field, right? And we need to catch that system under there. That's one way to do it. The other way, if you don't have access to one of those motors, if you've got a planter that will run that box stationary, right, that is hydraulically or electrically driven, you can tell it to drive a certain footage. You can do that. You catch it, weigh it. And if you don't have that, guess what we have to do? We got to flag off a distance. Hang some cups up under it and catch it and weigh it and look at it. And then we've got adjustments on the back of those to open the flutes up further or to close them further down. And so the insecticide calibrations are very important right now. It's the time we need to do it and do that right. And I'm going to throw safety in there. I had a conversation last night at the meeting we were at that we get to moving fast, and I was guilty of it when I was in grad school. We did a bunch of Timic work, and I think Timic's worse than anything we have now. But we would get comfortable. You know, we do the first few times we did it, we wore masks, we wore gloves, we were careful. The next time, well, we lost the mask. The next time, we lost the gloves. Next time, you're feeling dizzy and sick, and you're like, what's going on? And you're like, oh, well, and I say that to kind of be half funny. But at the same time, it's a serious issue, right? You get out there, and this stuff is dangerous. It's poisonous. If you don't have a blank or don't have access to it, wear your PPE. I mean, I didn't come on here with thought in my mind I was going to talk about PPE, but we need to make sure that's the time to do it working with these chemicals. The same way with sprayers.
Yeah, because my sprayer, a calibrator, is now yellow with prowl.
There you go. See, yep.
So you get covered in the stuff,
even though it was cleaned out, right?
That's right. So, but I just feel like even, especially over here, sometimes we just forget the calibration process as a whole because we do get in such quick pace. Our entire goal is to get planted,
Yep.
to get set up, whether it's corn and we're going into cotton and peanuts, or whether we're just trying to get through the whole planting process because we've got 100 other things to do. And sometimes we forget that even the most minute slip up can be very costly. So like you say, it's just, sure, it's not necessarily a year that we want to spend a lot of extra money, but at the same point, we certainly don't want to lose any extra money as well.
That's where we're at, I think. Use the resources we have and allocate them the way we need to be and know they need to be.
That's right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to echo about the safety piece because I think you mentioned Timic. There's people that are very close to me that I work with that, I mean, that's a bad mamma jamma, and you got to really take care of yourself and take care of, protect yourself. You might think you're too tough to wear something that makes you look like you stepped out of a quarantine zone, but at the same time, I mean, in the long run, it's going to help you.
Yes.
I mean, it could be the difference in health issues later in life, or more, maybe recent, or coming soon. The other thing I was going to say, I wanted to kind of ask you. I know you do a lot. We're talking more of the commercial side, but the stuff we've talked about, that can apply to somebody that's got, a small garden or has a small tractor they're running, or a tractor with a sprayer, or just, are there any advice that you could give somebody to make sure that they're, how can they apply some of this, what you talked about, to something that's more of a everyday scenario?
It's funny you say that because last night, actually, a grower at the meeting's like, I wish you'd have came 2 weeks ago. I used a 2-row monosim to plant my garden with. And I don't know how big his garden was. I didn't ask him, but he planted a bunch of different stuff. I'm assuming it's a couple acre, like he probably sells at a farmer's market or something like that. And he's like, you hit on 3 things I messed up this year. He's like, if I'd have talked to you 2 weeks earlier, he said, I wouldn't have dropped seed all over the ground. I wouldn't have planted it too deep. And there was one other thing. I don't remember what it was. But he's like, now I know. He's like, now I know. And so we sit there and say, well, none of this. And that's one thing that I get very aggravated with. Sometimes they think that the stuff we talk about is not applicable on that scale. And I've been told that before. I was like, hold on, though. If you talk to me about it. Because one of the biggest things on sprayers that we get up, and I'm guilty of it, I'll go ahead and say that, We'll take these small little pull behind lawnmower sprayers, and this is stuff we do homeowner lawn stuff with. Let's make sure it's as simple there. They should have some sort of adjustment valve on them for flow rate and pressure. Get a catch can. If you don't get access to one, the spot-ons, get a catch can and time it, right? The spot-on Savannah's talking about are great because there's a formula that goes with them, and they tell you flow rate. Make sure you're putting out, at least what you think you are, right? And think about what chemical you're putting in the thing, and think about what the spray looks like. Think about time of day when you're spraying and what your pattern looks like. Like, there's a lot of things that go into that we're talking about here that we are very quick to point fingers at our big ag producers for messing stuff up. But we have just as big a responsibility as smaller scale homeowner, et cetera, because we're working with a lot of the same stuff, right? And so it may not be on bulk size, but again, there's a lot of things we should focus on right there that we can address.
One thing that me and Holly Anderson, the agent in Irwin County, worked on a couple of weeks ago. We actually taught sprayer calibration at the Tifton beef short course. And one thing that so Holly and I worked with Dr. Prosco at developing a sprayer calibration system for hand wands. And one thing that caught me completely off guard is we see a lot of forage producers using a hand wand to kill things like
Off a four-wheeler, off a side-by-side.
that's right, to kill stuff like thistle and small clump grasses and things. Well, when we calibrated that hand wand, we were putting out 290 gallons to the acre
Holy
the
moly,
first
I
time.
believe
And we would none of us would have ever guessed that. But when you look at putting out 7, 8, 10, 12 times the amount of gray zone being one of the
Ooh.
most residual
yeah.
chemicals that we have, it kind of opens up your eyes a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, even if it's, I think sometimes our forage producers forget that they're still an ag producer.
Mm-hmm.
And so certainly when you start looking at sprayers for them, they are worn out and old. But
Well, we're doing the wands, we're doing the boomless nozzles, we're doing
That's
some of
right.
that stuff, and we just want to check those.
That's
yeah.
right. And we certainly can work with anybody. Even like today at this training, Luwan, we talked about air blast sprayers.
Mhm.
That's something I've not seen that process for. Now, mind you, I'd probably wear my udder tags to do
Yeah.
it. But it was pretty interesting to see that. And why are we not doing that a little
Yep.
more? Because, our goal as agricultural producers, whether you're a small garden producer or an egg producer, is to produce the best quality with the best yield in the most sustainable way. And if we're putting out too much, or maybe we're shooting ourselves in the foot and not putting out enough,
Yep.
we have given up that goal of that unsustainable and profitable way.
Yep.
In that situation.
That's it. The air blast ones are cool to me because, a lot of people, I had a farm manager the other day, and he come up to me after the training. So we invited this training we didn't just invite agents. We invited some of the UGA research station farm managers and workers there so they could feel comfortable with some of this stuff too. Not that they don't do a good job already, but it's a good refresher for them. And he was like, man, he's like, this was like perfect. He's like, I've never really dealt with air blast much, and the farm he's on has a lot of pecan trees. And he was like, I'm going to have to calibrate one
Hold
next
on,
week.
Wes. Hold on. Before you finish, we say pecan around
Pecan.
here. Okay, so
I-
we gonna correct you. All right, keep going. I just had to throw it out there for my
knew it was
pecan
coming when
lovers
I
out
said
there.
it. I said I'd have messed
You
up
were even
now.
closer. You were like pecan.
You see?
I caught you. I got you.
I stuttered. I was like, I messed it up. But he's like, now I got it, right? And so he's like, I would have never thought to do it that way. I was trying to figure out when I'm blowing all that stuff everywhere what to do. And when you look at it, it's a simpler procedure. And I'm glad that's why we incorporated it this year. Did every agent out there, have they had to deal with it? No. But do we have some sort of orchard crop that is used on in every county that we're in? Yes. So now that you've got another tool in your toolbox as an agent to say, I'm more comfortable with this, or I know that I can at least call Luwan and he can get me the products and talk me back through it, right? And so now we're working on doing that and addressing some of these issues that we may not have in the past either. That we all get busy and forget about certain stuff, and I think we need to focus on them. So
And I like that y'all are focusing on a new and different way, providing resources for a wide range of different product, different technology, just to be resources and help guides. I think it's funny. You take a commercial grower. I've gotten calls. They'll call me about their lawn. It's like a different world when it comes to a smaller scale, like taking that big, large scale idea. But it's the same concepts, like you alluded to. And I do want to point. We're getting into garden season, and everybody's putting out their backyard gardens and everything like that. We're doing so many soil samples right now. But you mentioned about the downfor, planting it too deep or not, dropping seed. That could be the problem for a lot of calls that agents get later is why is this not growing right, or why didn't this come up, or why didn't this? It could be when you put it in the ground that could have been your problem, and you might not think about it.
that's the hardest one, in my opinion, to go out and diagnose, because when you guys get the call, it's when the plant stand is not coming up.
Exactly.
And so then it's like, all right, how do I diagnose this? Initially, we want to point at something agronomic or something chemical-wise. Yep. We got damage here or there, or maybe there's some sort of pest in that field has caused the problem, right? There's about 4 different things that, on that side that could do it. But then when we go back and look, it's like, can we go look at that planter and say, well, let me go check your depth real quick. Or did you adjust downforce in this field? And you start looking at the field, and is it tied to, hey, maybe there's varied soil moisture here, right? It was wetter in this area and it didn't come up. You caused compaction. Or it was drier in this area and you planted it too shallow, or there's something going on. And how do we troubleshoot that after the fact? Because that's when y'all get the call. You don't get the call when it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You get a call after the fact.
And I'll say, like, you just mentioned so many factors that when an agent calls, it's easy to not even pay attention to that stuff. It's easy to think, oh, I planted it a week ago. You might have ended up planting it 2 weeks ago and you forgot.
Yeah.
Or time goes by crazy when it comes to especially when it comes to either lawns or gardens. It's very hard to get a good estimate of when these problems showed up, how long it's been. And you're exactly right. These are some of the things that are factors that would be really good to kind of just take in and kind of think about when you give us this call. Give us that information too to help that with this process. It's a lot harder to diagnose when there's only a little bit of information or a part of the puzzle there.
Yes.
Now, before we kind of are getting a little close to our end here, I just kind of wanted to ask before I hand it to Savannah to kind of go over some upcoming things. What any other advice for growers or this time of year that we haven't covered that you might want to just as your final 2 cents?
Yeah, last thing is your irrigation system.
Okay.
If you're irrigated, that's the last one that was included in this training too. Those systems have sat since probably August or September, depending on what crop you pulled out. It's the same thing. We can't expect those systems to be up to par. I said on sprayers, we had a cold winter. If you didn't drain that irrigation system, we had a cold winter. You're going to start it up. You're going to find cracked regulators. You're going to find nozzles that aren't working. There's a whole suite of things that aren't working right there. Please, please, please do not wait until the day you need the water to turn the system on the first time this year. To me, it's as simple as that. Then you have time to diagnose the problem. I said when we first started this, it's dry. It was cool up here this morning. I had wore short sleeve and was chilly setting up. But with the soil temperature, I guarantee is warm enough to plant. But if it don't start raining soon and you get crop in the ground, you're going to want to turn that irrigation system on. And that's the last time you want to see that it's failed, and then it not rain for 3 or 4 more weeks.
What about just last thing from that, safety-wise?
Yes.
Checking that. Can you talk through how what's the best method to make sure we're safe when we're working with?
Yeah, try. If you don't have one, they're cheap, and if you don't buy one, I know we all same way we get out there and don't have them, but you can buy the non-contact voltmeters. They're going to tell you if there's stray voltage floating around that panel box. The thing that's going to happen, and I'm glad you brought that up, and you told me 2 seconds. I'm going to spend about 20 on this one or so. Systems have sat. We've had thunderstorms. We've had other things that have happened. If there's been a failure in a system and you didn't know about it, and you go up and grab that panel box and it's live, I hate to be like the negative guy, but that's it. That 480 volt it causes muscle contraction. So what you need to do is touch it with the back of your hand first, stand to the side, touch it, and if it is live, it's going to hurt. It's going to jerk your hand back to you. Rather have your hand burnt and jerk back to you than you be locked onto it. Too many stories, and I've got some personal stories I won't go into here of people either seriously injured or killed on pivots because of voltage that's there. So this is not something to play with either. Back of hand, non-contact voltmeter, even those large fuses, when you turn the power onto that system for the first time, stand to the side, not in front of. I've heard stories about those fuses going off like a gun when they do fail. So, again, don't just go up and climb on that system or touch it when it hasn't been ran since last year. All right? Very, very critical.
So this is kind of just a funny blurb, but also make sure that your panel box and stuff's not in stinging nettle.
Oh!
I got the phone call about that. Or fire ants, because I got the call about that yesterday, actually, and it's kind of a silly story, but, that stuff will make you think you're dying. Well, Wes, thank you. If you're not listening to the Peanut podcast or the Cotton podcast, Wes is on that too. Both of those have a lot of great knowledge if you're specific to peanut and cotton.
Yeah, but y'all let me go through the wide gamut of everything today. I don't get to do that on those, right? And so it's great to be able to cover all those different topic areas we need to think about.
So we certainly just want to thank y'all and thank you specifically because obviously Wes is a wealth of knowledge and we appreciate everything that he does. One thing that I will mention, we talked about sprayers, so my livestock guys, I really need you to tune in on this. If you are not spraying your thistles, you need to be. It is March the 27th, and if you call me in a month or even in 6-8 weeks, like you guys like to call me, your options are going to be very limited. So we're fitting to transition into upcoming events. So
Savannah just had to throw some shade at somebody. That's all I know. That's what I gathered from that little comment.
It's not just one somebody's; it's a lot of somebody's. So upcoming events, spraying thistles is not upcoming. Spraying thistles is now. That being said, we do have a couple of upcoming events. On April the 3rd, we have the Onion Field Day at the Vidalia Onion Research Center. Please make sure you call Chris to get registered for that. On April the 11th, we have the newest form of our UGA Forage Team Grassmasters. It's called Grassroots 365. That's in Oglethorpe County. If you're interested in attending that, you can let me know, and I'll be glad to help you get registered for that. And then on April the 22nd, we have our annual Tifton Herd Sale to get some good registered or commercial heifers. They've all been vetted and bred, and so we're excited to see how those heifers do this year. I can't think of any other upcoming events.
They have the precision ag thing at the Grand Farm on May 1st. What's that called?
That's the grand opening and the second annual. So make sure y'all hear me. That's the second annual Integrative Institute of Precision Ag annual, or second annual, said it 4 times, conference, and the groundbreaking of the Grand Farm, and that's occurring, Blake, as you said, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm looking at my calendar, May 1st and 2nd. May 1st will be the IPA conference. May 2nd is the official groundbreaking and equipment demos, and that's in Perry, Georgia.
I think that would be pretty cool. If y'all haven't heard about that or that event, I definitely would recommend looking it up. There's some really cool things that are going to be shown there. It's also something that's the Grand Farm is something completely new for UGA, and so it's something new to our state. So it's pretty exciting, but some of that technology they'll have there, some of the See and sprays and things like that, I think it's really cool, and it's worth looking at, even if we might not be looking at it right now for your farm, but it's something to go ahead and get familiar with, and maybe down the line some technology that we could adopt. So Savannah, anything else?
Well, just before we close, we certainly want to remind you guys that your county agents, we talk about planters, we talk about sprayer calibration. Mm-hmm. Your agents have even voltage meters. We have a wide variety of resources that you guys can either check out from our offices, or you can call us and say, hey, I've misplaced this. And I think I may need it today, or hey, do you mind coming and calibrating my sprayer with me? So make sure you're contacting them, because again, we have a lot of little resources that you may not ever think about, but then we have a lot more technology. But that being said, we're going to go ahead and close out. We certainly want you guys to stay safe. You guys are in our prayers as you start moving up and down the roads. And we certainly pray for a good crop year. So that being said, thank y'all for listening, and keep tilling it like it is.
Pulled up beside him, Blair and beside Merle, and he said there's still some good in this world. He said the hag was a poet for the common man, guide him through his tour.